Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and what I thought I'd do is try and catch up with the latest today, and that is that Boris Johnson and Dominic Cummings seem to be in a position now of not just their tactics are not working, but they're actually backfiring and biting them on the arse. But first, if you find yourself enjoying the video, then please click the like button and subscribe to the channel. So, where we left it, or where I left it last night, was discussing that Boris Johnson's best chance of stopping this bill was the delaying tactics in the Lords. That was actually a serious threat to this. So imagine my surprise when I woke up this morning to find that in the early hours of the morning, when I was asleep, I do get sleep, contrary to popular opinion, the government had basically given in on it. And they said they weren't going to try and delay it. Now, I think there is still some filibustering going on, but that's just mainly from hardline Brexiteers doing it off their own bat. The government has said that this bill will go through the Lords by 5 p.m. on Friday. So that's enough time. So what happens then is it would then go to the Commons on Monday. Remember, it's been prorogued next week, but it won't be immediately. And it may be sometime on Monday. But all the Commons has to do is just rubber stamp it and say, yeah, that's fine. Off to the palace. Job done. It's law. It's enacted. No one is seriously talking about anything that will now stop it. But then what I thought to myself is, okay, so Boris Johnson has set so much store to stopping this legislation. In order to stop this legislation, he has prorogued Parliament for 5 weeks. He has threatened his own MPs, which will have worked on a number of them, but still has meant he's had to expel a lot of MPs. And there's many more are really upset about this as well. So he's really turning his own MPs against him on this matter. And he's done that just to stop this piece of legislation. So why suddenly say that he's not going to authorise or he's not going to tell the Lords to try and delay it? You've got to think about it. So what harm would it have done, even if he thinks that the Lords were still going to be able to get it through despite his best efforts? What harm did it do to keep the filibuster? None that I could see. So then you think to yourself, so what good does it do for him to withdraw it? And the only thing I can think of, literally the only thing that makes sense, is going back to Jeremy Corbyn's statement when Boris Johnson first suggested a general election. You know, that thing he said he didn't want. And it's actually quite bizarre, wasn't it? When he first was suggesting it in Parliament on Tuesday, he says, I don't want a general election. I don't think you want a general election. I don't think anyone wants a general election. Should we have a general election? Because, that's a statement that makes sense. But Corbyn said, no, I want to make sure this bill goes through first. So maybe Boris Johnson is thinking, right, let's get the bill through and then Corbyn will back the general election. But it won't be under those terms still. He will back the general election, but not until November. So I think if that's his reason, and I don't know what his reasoning is, but if that is his reasoning, I think he's making a big miscalculation. Because, and today they've been on that pressure has been on Corbyn. I say pressure, it's actually crap pressure really if you think about it. But you might imagine there's been a lot of pressure. All the Brexit media have been absolutely taunting Corbyn. I mean, these are the sort of newspapers and media that attack him anyway. I mean, it should be water for ducks back, shouldn't it? Or a chicken's back in this particular case. That's what they were comparing him to. And really, the gloves were off and the knuckle dusters were on. They've really gone for it. They're really having a go at Corbyn. Again, in media where if you're going to buy it, you're the sort of person that bought it ages ago anyway. So it makes no difference to him. And the Prime Minister's keeping that pressure on. And all I would say at this point is Corbyn just needs to stay the course. Apparently, he told a senior member of Labour yesterday that he's not going to sanction a general election before November. Stay on target with that. That's what he needs. The thing is, an October general election, it's all right Boris Johnson saying he wants it for the 15th. There is nothing to stop him. If that vote had gone through yesterday, there was nothing to stop him saying, oh, we'll have it on the 31st instead. And then Parliament's dissolved at just the point when that new law, or it's not a new law just yet, but will be on Monday, needs to fire in, needs to kick in. So what are they going to do then? So no, And now, Boris Johnson still wants this general election in mid-October, but how does he get it? He can't just issue another motion. You might imagine, so the bill goes through, then he says to Corbyn, right, I'm issuing this motion again. There's actually a couple of reasons why he can't do it, but the main reason is you're not allowed to push the same motion twice in the same session of Parliament. Now, so you've got to change it in some material way. Now, the bar is pretty low. We know that because Theresa May got to put her withdrawal agreement up to Parliament 3 times, and when they were basically the same thing. But you just tweak something or you change some aspect of it. It's a very low bar that the Speaker would allow. But he can't use the Fixed Terms Parliament Act, so what can he do? Some people have talked about him issuing a confidence motion in himself, which then Labour would, you can't imagine Labour would back it. So maybe he could do that. That's the nuclear option. The problem is then, does he risk that? Because it's possible, faced with that situation, faced with a general election in mid-October, which could well spell a no-deal Brexit, or getting behind a compromise candidate, they may choose the compromise candidate. So that's ultra risky for him. The other option is he just presents another bill to Parliament, a totally separate bill, which basically says, notwithstanding the Fixed Terms Parliament Act, we should have a general election on October the 15th, 2019, which would basically then put the date in law. At that point, he wouldn't be able to change it once it's gone through. Fair enough. And maybe that's his plan. The only problem is this. The bill is not going to go through until Monday. So is he proposing to put that bill before Parliament on Monday or Tuesday? Oh, wait, he's shutting Parliament down for 5 weeks then. He won't be able to. Bad luck, Boris. Your own prorogation's going to bite you on the arse. That's the situation now. So easy. By the way, with that prorogation, the court case is taking another little interesting turn. So it's they've turned up quite a little bit of evidence in terms of potential criminal behaviour on the part of the government. So even if it turns out the prorogation, which is going to appeal in Scotland, and obviously the judicial review is having an initial hearing today as well, even if that goes nowhere, there is now evidence that maybe there's some criminal charges to be answered for Boris Johnson and his government. So that might be interesting later on. But anyway, this 5-week break we're about to have, it's not going to be like summer, because you could look at it one way. Boris Johnson becomes Prime Minister, then immediately Parliament goes off for 6 weeks. That was silly. They shouldn't have done that, but they did. Then they come back for 1 week, and then they go off for another 5 weeks, because Boris has shut them down. And you might think, oh, more of the same. It's just like another slightly shorter summer holiday. But it's not going to be the same this time. Whereas over summer, Boris Johnson was swanning around, acting all tough, disparaging Parliament, saying how he was going to get his way, how he was going to do this, that and the other. He's come back, and in 1 week, Parliament has kicked his arse all over the place. He has failed a number of votes. In fact, he's failed all his votes, but there's been quite a few votes. He now has a 0% record as Prime Minister. So he could end up in a few weeks' time, a couple of months' time, doesn't matter, as not only the shortest serving Prime Minister if he's kicked out, but the shortest serving Prime Minister and the only Prime Minister in history never to have won a single vote. That'd be bad. That'd be hilarious, actually, wouldn't it? So yeah, this next 5 weeks, although he's going to be going around and doing his, because he's still Prime Minister, the MPs just don't get to sit, that's all, he's not going to be swanning around saying he's going to do this, going to do that, because he's been beaten. Absolutely beaten. And I know some people will be saying, but what if it gets to the point where he has to enact, this law's in place, he has to follow it. Some people have been saying, can he just word the letter so that he won't get the extension? No, he can't. They've thought of that. The bill itself contains the exact wording, so he won't even write the letter. Someone will bring it to him, maybe the Cabinet Secretary will bring in the letter. It's already written out, according to law. All he has to do is sign it, and then he doesn't even post it. Someone else posts it. All he has to do is sign it. That's all the law requires of him. But what if he refuses to do that? I don't know is the simple answer. I know what Parliament can do about it. Ultimately, what will be done about it depends on how far Boris Johnson is willing to go. Remember, he's not being cavalier about disobeying this law. If he were, he wouldn't have risked so much and done himself so much harm and shot himself in both feet so many times to stop this bill if he was just blasé about the fact he would just ignore it anyway. So don't read too much into the bravado of his minister saying, oh, well, he's just going to ignore it. Because is he? Is he really? If so, why has he put so much into trying to block it? But maybe he will, in which case what Parliament can do is either replace him. Hopefully what they will do is over these 5 weeks is still have those discussions with each other and just say, look, can we get behind a candidate to replace him with in case he does it? Have a plan. And if that's the case, just get behind Ken Clarke. He's not even a Tory anymore. Perfect. Ideal compromise candidate. Just get behind him. Really short term. They can still have a general election soon after. Get the extension into your general election if that's what has to be agreed. That's a compromise between Corbyn's position and everyone else's. You know, Corbyn wants to be Prime Minister and have a general election straight away after the extension. Everyone else wants the extension, public vote, then general election, and they don't want Corbyn as Prime Minister. Surely a compromise is get behind someone else, but have the general election after the extension. You know, that would seem as reasonable a compromise as you can possibly find to me. But the scenario now is, as this bill goes through and Corbyn holds firm and doesn't agree to vote until November, then Johnson has lost. I'm not saying Brexit's lost, but Johnson has lost, because imagine the scenarios then. Either he is still able to engineer a no-deal Brexit because he breaks the law and Parliament neither gets behind a compromise candidate nor revokes Article 50, in which case we still crash out. All right, call it illegal. It's illegal under numerous pieces of legislation, but it'll still happen. He still loses then, because that general election that he won't be able to stop at that point will take place late November. The timing will such. There's no way Parliament can vote for this before mid-October now. That means late November for the election. After which, there's been several weeks of no-deal Brexit. The government's own report says there will be panic within 2 weeks. What do you think it's going to be like after 3? What after 4? When the general election, people are going to the polls, what do you think it's going to be like then? Where do you think people are going to be putting their ticks? Not very many are going to be put it by the Conservatives or even the Brexit Party. Not very many. Only the die-hard ones. Do you know what? They'll be splitting it between those two. He's knackered. Ironically, his best outcome is if he doesn't manage to get the no-deal Brexit, but even then he's knackered, because then that election's taking place in November. We're still in the EU. He cannot. What's he going to campaign on? That he's going to take us out of the EU? How? Over summer he was saying we're going to go out, do or die. There will be in November. Who is going to believe him when he says he can beat Parliament? Parliament's just beaten him, and they'll have beaten him in a week. He shut them down for 5 weeks and they'll have still beaten him. What chance has he got of beating them next time the deadline comes up? Whenever that is, whether it's January or later. The next time that deadline comes up, do you know what? If you haven't got a deal, Bojo, we're still extending until the EU tells us no. And I don't get the impression the EU are going to tell us no. So he's completely knackered either way. He just ironically might do better if we haven't left the EU. But it will still be losing seats, which means he hasn't even got a government now. Well, you know, it's minority. He can't even command the confidence of the House now. No chance. So he won't be Prime Minister either way. This bill goes through. Corbyn stands firm. He is not going to be Prime Minister for very much longer. I can't imagine the circumstances that will allow him to carry on. But I think Labour should let him carry on for a little while. Have that general election in November. Let him stew, as they keep saying, in his own juices. Let the country see how impotent he is. And as I say, if he does still manage to break Parliament and break the law, whatever, and get us out with a deal, then again, people will see it. It's lose-lose for Boris Johnson. It's absolutely that simple. And as someone said today, if you don't know, Boris Johnson's own brother, who is a Tory MP and a minister, or at least was, has resigned as both a minister and an MP. They've given them the ideal slogan. You know, Boris Johnson's own brother doesn't trust him with Brexit. So why should you? Perfect, isn't it? Perfect. So anyway, that's the situation we're in now. There's lots more to report on. I'm going to have to mull that tonight and try and get a few more videos out either tonight or tomorrow as well. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did and you'd like to support the channel further, then please click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.